Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Little slow getting going here. Got a little messed up. Hey Dave, how you doing? Yeah, had a lot of technical issues going on, and I got a little bit of glare. Let me see if I can fix that. There. Anyway, uh, yeah, having shows coming to you from Rockport, Massachusetts. I'm on a little uh, vacay for the week and put some stuff going on. So, hey, Mike, how you doing? Yeah, new background. A little north of West Palm Beach, Florida, that's for sure. Rockport, Mass. But yeah, so been getting some stuff going on here and uh, put a little thing together for you guys. I didn't want to. I was going to do a pre-recorded. That didn't seem to work out very well, so it's going to be again live tonight. So episode 99, getting close to that 100 mark. That'll be next Tuesday. We get back home on Monday, and I'll have that put together for you guys. I got some of the stuff already working on, and we'll get the rest of it going here shortly. But yeah, so we are live. So got worked on the Corvette last week, and that kind of led me to tonight's tech show about valve lash and adjusting valves and checking lifter lubrication. So if you put a new cam in a motor, and a lot of times a lot of the bigger performance cams have a small base circle, so that way it's got clearance for strokers and stroker cranks and different connecting rods and stuff like that. But when you change the base circle, there's some things you have to look at. One of them is oiling. A lot of times the lifter will drop out of the bore in the block where the oil feeds, and you will get sporadic dry oiling. So those are kind of some of the things we wanted to talk about tonight. So what I need to do is I didn't get the Corvette set up in the show here, but we'll get that going here. Let me see if I can get this going here. Second, I gotta put my glasses on so I can see what's going on. But yeah, so I got some of the stuff going on, but I don't have everything all organized yet. So let me go ahead and show you what's going on here. Almost got her. That's the one I want. Nope. Right here. All right, so let me go ahead and get this going for you. A little video that I took for Finn's car. All right, so this 69 Corvette with a 427 engine. You can see here they've got a Magnum, Comp Cams Magnum rockers.
and those come with these big 11/16 nuts on there, which is causing what the problem is. So this valve cover has these oil deflectors here. Those oil deflectors are supposed to keep the oil from getting all over the place, but they eliminate the ability to put polylocks on the rocker arms. So vehicle came in for some sniper tuning, and you can see by the look of the sniper how dark it is in the throttle body. Well, it's been backfiring, and first off I thought it was plugs and stuff like that, coil wires, but ended up being the valves were adjusted too tight, and so as you put load on the car, you just enough compression backing up through the intake valves that would actually explode in the intake and backfire through the valve body, or through the throttle body. So we're going to go ahead and throw some polylocks on here, readjust the valves, and then that should fix the situation. Just to do a test, I went ahead and loosened the rockers up. Wasn't able to adjust them, but just loosened them up to where they made noise, and the popping went away. So I know that's what the issue is, and we're going to go ahead and fix it now. All right, so this 69 Corvette with a...
All right, so I didn't go to the next video. Let me see if I can fix that. Nope. All right, I guess it's gonna... see if that goes to the next scene there. Yeah, I think it did. All right, here we go.
All right, so we have all the rocker arms off. I just wanted to show you. So the way these come, so you got this 11/16 nut here, but when it's down inside the rocker arm, to get the socket in there, you see it barely fits in there. So there's no way to adjust the valve and figure out the preload and that stuff, because the socket is binding up on the rocker, and it doesn't give you a good thing, a good feel. So we want polylocks. That's what should be on there. And a polylock has an Allen set screw inside of it. So it is a threaded nut with a long shoulder, so the hex is above the sides of the rocker arm, and it has a Allen plug, or Allen, and that goes down and that locks against the rocker stud, pulling it out, and that locks the rocker stud from moving. And this style nut, it's a crimped style nut, so once these have been adjusted a couple times, they're no good anyway. So we don't want to use those. We definitely want to go with the Polylock. So we're going to go ahead and put these on now and set up the valves and adjust them.
All right, so now we gotta switch to the next screen here. Not the way I wanted to do it, but it's working, so. I hope the sound is good. You guys can hear everything. It looks like on my meters, it looks like it's working pretty good.
All right, so we converted this to a Polylock. Now you can see we can put a socket in there, and it doesn't interfere with the rocker arm while we're adjusting valves. Which brings me up to a good point. Really easy way of adjusting valves. In the older days when we had smaller camshafts, we used to put the motor on TDC, and you could do that cylinder, intake and exhaust. Then there was some guys that made these sticks, quick sticks, and you'd put the motor on TDC, and you'd lay a stick on there, and it would show you which valves you could adjust. Then you rotated the motor 360 degrees to the next TDC. You flipped the piece of the tool over, and it told you the next set of valves you could adjust. And just 2 turns on the crank, and you were done. The problem is, nowadays we're running a lot bigger camshafts, and we have a lot more overlap. So you can't use that method because it's very easy to get caught on the ramp of the intake or exhaust when you're doing that. So what you want to do is always adjust your valves. Exhaust open, intake closing. So EOIC. Always remember that. EOIC. So you bump the engine over till you see the exhaust valve moving. So here we have an exhaust valve. And here we have an exhaust valve. We'll see which one starts moving. All right, so gotta get to a spot.
All right, so that one was
where the
let me switch because that was a failed attempt at that one. It's got to be this one here. Sorry about that. Thanks, Dave, for the heads up on the sound. So let's try this one here. I think this is a little better.
All right, so to adjust the valves, we want the exhaust valve just to come open. All right, so it's on the base circle now, and we'll just keep bumping around a little bit. All right, the exhaust valve is just moved. So now we can adjust the intake.
All right, so that was not the right one either. I had to do a couple different films on that one because I was paying attention to the camera, not paying attention to what I was doing. So let's try this one. Hopefully this is the winner.
All right, so we want to adjust the valves. We're going to use the exhaust open intake closing method, which is the preferred method. All race teams and engine builders all use that style, because that way you have no chance of catching the ramp of the camshaft and getting a bad adjustment. So you want to start off with your Polylock adjusting nuts, the Allen bolt loose, and we're going to bump it around. This is the cylinder we're doing. This is the exhaust. We're going to wait till we see the exhaust valve starting to open. Oh, we missed it. All right, it just moved. So now we can adjust our intake. So this is hydraulic. So we're going to loosen it up. We can turn the push rod with our fingers. And we're just going to slowly turn it till the push rod stops turning. All right, the push rod stopped. So on this motor, we're going to go a quarter turn of preload. So there's a quarter turn. Take the Polylock, tighten it down, and we're good. Now, on a hydraulic, the nut can turn a little bit and that's not going to hurt anything. If you're doing a solid, you'd have to put a wrench on the hex to keep the hex from moving. Otherwise, it makes a change in your valve lash. So now that we got the intake done, now we're going to adjust the exhaust valve. So to adjust the intake, we went exhaust, barely opening. Now we're going to follow the intake valve down and back up because we want the intake closing to adjust the exhaust. Okay, intake is going down, all the way down, back up. Now we can adjust the exhaust valve. So again, turn the push rod by finger, and right there it stops. So now we're at zero lash. So now we're going to turn a quarter turn and tighten the Polylock. And that's it. You do it that way, you'll be a professional at adjusting valves. The motor will run so much cleaner and nicer. You don't have to worry about missing your lash. Now, on a trick for a flat tappet or a solid flat tappet or a solid roller is on your cam card, you have to adjust the lash with the engine hot. So you'd have to heat up the engine, run the valves, keeping notice of the engine. If it starts cooling off because you're taking a bit of time, you'll have to heat it back up again. Typically, I would do one bank, leave the other side covered, and then once this bank's done, put the valve cover on, run the engine for a minute or two, and then do the other side. But the trick is, once you have your lash set hot, let's just say 25, that's what most solid rollers will want. So you get it really set nice at 25 on all your valves. Let the motor cool off, say like the next day. Go in and use a feeler gauge and find out what clearance the rocker arms are at cold engine. You'll see that with aluminum heads, aluminum block, there's a lot of expansion, even with cast iron. So on an iron block aluminum head that you want 25 thousandths hot, it's probably going to be about 18 cold. So you'd want to find what that number is and check them all, make sure they're all even, and then you verify by heating it up and checking a couple that that's your cold number. Now from now on, you can always set the valve lash when it's cold, which is much easier than doing it on a hot engine. You don't have to worry about trying to keep heat in the engine and all those kind of things. It just makes your life way easier. As far as hydraulic roller or hydraulic flat tappet, where you have preload on the valve, on the lifter, I usually kind of weigh out the way the vehicle is. This vehicle, we're looking for performance. If it's got a little valve train noise in it, we're okay with that. So I'll set them at a quarter beyond zero lash. Now, if you want the motor to be dead quiet, no valve train noise at all, you can go a half or even 3/4 of a turn past zero lash, and that'll be fine. Typically, on a hydraulic, you'd want the lifter plunger to be about 50 thousandths down from all the way up against the clip. That's when the hydraulic is doing its job. Now, I like them a little higher than that. Like I said, a quarter turn on this is probably only about 20-25 thousandths in pushing down on the lifter plunger, but that's because I don't want the lifter to collapse at high RPM. So I'd rather it be full of oil instead of half full of oil. So that's just what I do. It may some people may not think it's right. It's just what I've always done. So anyway, that's how you adjust the valves. Always remember, exhaust open. So when the exhaust valve just starts open, adjust the intake. Then once you got the exhaust valve adjusted, the intake valve adjusted, then you roll the engine over to intake closed. So the intake valve will go open and then come back on its way up to being closed. And then you adjust the exhaust valve. And what that will do is it will always make sure that you are on the base circle of the camshaft, nowhere near any of the lobe ramps, and get the best valve lash you can get. Like I said before, that's how all professional racers do it, and professional race engine builders do it, because you can't mess up. It's foolproof. So there you have it. Now we'll go ahead and get this car back together, and hopefully we'll be able to get the tuning finished.
All right, so appreciate you guys hanging in there with my mistake on. I had a couple bad films there, and appreciate you doing that. Hey Rick, how you doing? Everybody else that's logged on. I know we got off a little crazy start tonight, but I appreciate everybody coming out and checking out our episode. So now that I showed it, I probably should have showed the slides first, then the video, but we can go ahead and go back and forth. So here's some slide shots I've got. And what you can see here is there's your cam core, your basic center of the core, and then you have your intake and exhaust lobes there. And you can see this is TDC right here in the middle, and you can see that their intake and the exhaust valve are at the same spot. And that is because cam design has gotten much broader and make more power. In the old days, that wasn't an issue. So that's, you know, they've changed that around some. So that's why the original methods of adjusting the valves doesn't work as good as it used to. So let me see, I gotta get to that slide. Where is it at? There we go. All right, so there's the kind of tools that you typically use for doing a valve lash. You're gonna have you know a crank bolt and torque wrench or a breaker bar you're going to rotate the engine with, or like I did in the video, use a bump button and use the starter to bump the motor over. And you'll need feeler gauges and then some type of tools to adjust the style rocker that you're dealing with. Now these clips here, anybody who's been working on cars for a while have seen these. Uh, those were little clips that Mr. Gaskin and a couple other companies came up with, and they would clip over top of the stamped steel rocker so that you could adjust the valves with the engine running. On a hydraulic style camshaft, you wouldn't do that on a flat tap that you need a feeler gauge, but those would go on, and then you would loosen up one rocker at a time till you heard clatter, and then you would turn it till it stopped clattering, which is basically zero lash, and then you would continue the adjustment for there. That's not a really accurate way of doing valve lash, but it was a quick and very dirty way of doing it, because you'd have, if you with a high volume oil pump, you'd have oil flying over top of the fenders and spraying everything, and just made a great mess. And if you have header wrap on the engine, you'd probably start the car on fire. So don't recommend doing it that way. In the video, I was talking about quick sticks, and this is basically a drawing of the same situation. So on a small block Chevy or big block Chevy or anything that have the same basic firing order, you would put these plastic sticks. It would kind of sit on the front on the intake with notches for the push rods. And so on your compression number 1, you would adjust all the valves in yellow, and then you would rotate the motor 180, which then would bring number 6 up to your TDC and number 6. You'd flip the sticks over, and then you would adjust the rest of them. But like I said, with the overlap in the newer camshafts, this is not a very accurate way. In fact, I was trying to find a picture of the quick sticks. I have a set at the shop, but I'm not there. So I was trying to find it, and I can't even find them. So I think they quit selling them because that method doesn't really work anymore. This is another method. It happens to be marked for Mopar, but it works for any motor. And this one, you have to keep rotating the engine in 90-degree increments. It does work. However, unless you have a balancer that's marked every 90 degrees, you have no idea where you're rotating it. So again, I don't feel that this is a very accurate way of doing it. Unless you have a balancer that has indicators all the way around it. So again, that's why I like using the method I do. And again, here's another picture from comp, and you can see here that here's our TDC, and we have ramps on both sides on TDC. So that is the reason why you can't use the old compression cylinder compression at TDC valve adjustment. You have to do it the way I do it, and that is with the exhaust just starting to open. You adjust your intake, because here's your rotations this way. So when your exhaust is starting to open, so your lifter would be up here, you would be, it would be before the intake ramp starts. So I didn't find a good picture which show that in actual. So things you're going to need, again, we need different, feeler gauges, and there's a whole bunch of different kind that are out there available. This is kind of the set I have. You can actually have a red and a blue, so you got intake and exhaust. And if you got an engine, it's got split valve adjustment. You can do that, and then they give you a bunch of different feeler gauges they'll work. There's another set with a slight bend in them, so they're easier to get in under the roller tip. And here's a real narrow one. This works good like on the 4200 Atlas. I see jack of all trades. Several companies sell mark tapes. Yeah, you can do the mark tapes and do it that way. But like I say, if you just bump it over and watch the exhaust valve, then the intake valve, you don't even have to worry about any of that stuff. I just find that to be a much easier and quicker way of doing it. Again, here's another set. I couldn't find a good slide you could see, but there are some feeler gauges that have a taper in this tip. I don't recommend using them because you're trying to push the feeler gauge under the roller tip or the tip of the rocker between the valve stem, and when it has a taper, you really can't feel where the tightness is. So try to always get one that's a straight number. Your tapered ones will actually have two numbers. It would say 008 with a little dash line, and underneath it would say 0.010. So a 0.002 taper in the valve and the tip of the feeler gauge. And I don't recommend using them because it's kind of hard to figure out where that spot is. Some easier tools for your polylocks. This is like a wrench that's got the hex. You can get these in all different sizes. And then you got your Allen wrench for to tighten them up. Just another different brand. The one bad thing about this, if you're working on multiple cars, you'd have to have multiple wrenches to do that. And this is the ultimate tool of all tools. LSM makes these. And it's actually a mini torque wrench. You can put the proper socket on for your rocker arm, and then they have a handful of different Allen wrenches so that you can adjust them. But those will actually click when your adjusting nut is tight, so you don't have to worry about over tightening them. There's just one with a couple different wrenches in it. So let me stop here for a second. Get my thing back up. So what I was trying to show, and I probably should have showed the video after I showed the pictures, but the easiest way to become great at adjusting valves and always having your engine run really good, like I said, is rotating the engine and watching the exhaust and the intake valves. Like I said, you can do it with the spinning the crank over and watching it for the 90-degree marks, but that can get you can get a little confused where you're at, or if you have to stop for a second and somebody needs to ask you a question or something, it's very easy to get lost which cylinder you were on. When you're doing the following the rocker method, it's very simple. You just start pulling the motor again and see which rocker moves, and you can tell right away where you're at. So, the other things I wanted to show on here is different lifters and what's going on with that. So let's go back to that. So there's some pictures of a small block. You can see there's no crossbar or wrenches or anything holding the lifters. So that tells you it's a flat tappet. Flat tappets have to rotate to lubricate keep oil between the cam lobe and the lifter. So they are ground with a slight, the camshaft has a slight ramp in it. And that way it kind of forces the lifter to rotate as it's going up and down. So if you look inside your motor and you see no wrenches, you can usually see through the push rod holes. You don't see any kind of fixture for holding the lifter, then it's going to be a flat tappet. And on the hydraulic, you'll know by when you turn it down, you'll see you can actually look in there and see the plunger move a little bit. This is the easiest way to adjust your Polylock is just an open end wrench using the boxed end and an Allen wrench. You don't have to use any special tools. You should have all that stuff in your toolbox already. Maybe not the T-handle Allen. You might have to use a regular Allen or an Allen socket, but any of those will work. So easy to do. And here's the guys using one of those full bore wrench kits on a, looks like a comp rocker. Again, you put your feeler gauge here between the valve stem and the roller tip or rocker tip, depending on what rocker arms you have, and set your lash. Now this is a solid either flat tappet or roller lifter. So where you have to actually use a feeler gauge and set the lash. And there's just a close-up of that. Let's see. All right, so let me go back to the... So I know I stumbled on the words a little bit there, but yeah, when you're doing a hydraulic cam, you want to use the zero lash method, and that can be either a roller or hydraulic flat tappet. Either way is going to be just the same. But those, you want to spin the push rod of the rocker arm that you're adjusting till you feel resistance on the push rod, and then you can actually slowly move the adjusting nut, and you'll actually feel the push rod kind of stop. Now, obviously, you can really get in there and wrench it, but if you kind of just use a real light fingertip feel, you can feel when the push rod stops. So that is what we consider zero lash. All the end play is gone. So then you would tighten up the adjusting nut, usually about a half of a turn. That's where they want. They want the lifter plunger to sink into the lifter between 30 and 60 thousandths. A half a turn gives you pretty close to 50 thousandths. Now, like I said in that little video, if you want a little bit more performance out of the car, at least in my belief, you want a little bit more performance out of the car. You're trying to get a little bit more lift out of the valve train, because if the plunger's not as sunk in, you're going to gain a little lift there. I set them at about a quarter turn. And then, like I said, if you really want to make sure it's dead quiet, you may go closer to 3/4 of a turn past zero lash. And that is that hydraulic area of the lifter that will allow it takes up the slack and stuff. So that makes the engine have zero noise. And then, of course, on your solid flat tappet or roller camshaft, then you're going to have to set it with a feeler gauge. And there, like I was saying in the video, you want to set it to manufacturer cam grind spec, which typically will be a hot spec, because they don't know what block and head combination you have, so they don't know the expansion rate. So they want it set hot because all the expansion is done. So you want the engine at normal operating temperature, and you set your valve lash. Now, as I was saying in the video, you got to watch that, because now while you're setting, pulling the valve cover off, getting your tools, adjusting the valves on one bank, by the time you get the valve cover back on, the motor may have cooled off. Or say if you got an electric water pump or something, you left the water pump on, the motor's cooling off while you're doing the valves. So you'd have to reheat the engine up to do the second bank. But you have to start off there. And then once you've got that done, then you can let the engine cool down overnight, where it's back, the whole engine is back to ambient temperature, and take a feeler gauge and find out what the clearance is on the cold engine. And then at that point, from there on, you can always adjust them cold. You don't have to worry about the heat and all that stuff. Much easier way of doing it. And just write down in your notebook or logbook or whatever you keep records on, the hot number and the cold number. That way, either way, you can set the lash. You can check the lash. If it's like a race car or something, you want to run the valves before you go to the track, you have your number you can run the valves with. And then for some odd reason, you're at the track and you go you want to check the lash just to verify the engine is not having any issues. on your higher horsepower motors, it's kind of a maintenance thing where you do at least once or twice an event during the event where you have your hot lash also. So it gives you two different numbers where you can always read them and see what's going on with it. I see we got somebody in HI74IH from California. Hey, welcome to the show. So yeah, so that's that. And then I wanted to show you one more thing about lifters, since we're on the subject of valve train and valve adjustments. It can be something you're doing routine maintenance, or maybe you've installed a new camshaft in your engine. So let me go back to the slideshow here. And so here's a typical picture, typical lifter. And you'll see there's a ground down center section here, and that's where your lifter galley, oil galley, is going to be. That part of the lifter should sit in that galley. And this hole is the lubricant hole that will fill the hydraulic lifter, and then either on a hydraulic or flat tap it will push the oil through the push rod and lubricate your rocker arms. Now there are some engines, Ford FE and stuff like that, that may have a different oiling system, but typically small block, big block, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, they're all going to do it this way. So this is a really good lifter here. In this picture here, you can see that where the oil hole is, they've actually got a little chamber going up to that hole. So the good thing about this is if you are running a small base circle camshaft, which is they do a lot of times, especially like on LS engines, the cam lobes can only be so tall because the cam won't fit in the block with the factory cam journal. So what they do to increase lift is they grind the base circle, the small side of the cam smaller, which then makes the tip of the lobe taller from the center line. So with the lifter cut away like this, it'll work even if the lifter is sunk down for a small base circle camshaft. Here's a typical roller style lifter. Now your roller lifters are always going to have some type of mechanism to hold the lifters from turning. If they turn, this wheel then it will not be parallel with the cam lobe, and it will actually start skidding, and it'll eat the lifter and eat the camshaft, throw metal all through your motor. Nothing good comes of it. So like I said, when you're peeking in alongside the push rods, or you pull a push rod out and you look down at the lifters inside, if the engine is assembled, always look for some type of crossbar or wrench system that would hold the lifters in there, and it's got a roller valve train in it. This is another one, a solid roller for racing. Now you can see this one, and this happens a lot. You got the oiling hole is up a little bit, so they're expecting that to drop into the trough of oil to get lubricant to your lifter, to your push rod and your rocker arm. Now, if you don't have oil going, a steady stream of oil going to those components, they will go dry and burn up. And this is why when you're working on a small base circle camshaft, you really need to prime the motor as when you're putting the camshaft in, you're hitting the valve train together, prime the motor with the oil pump, and make sure you have oil at all different positions of your lifter. So watch one cylinder, rotate the motor over, and no matter where the cylinder is or the rocker arm is, you should have oil coming through the push rod. If not, you may have to modify your lifter. Got it out of sync. There's a LS style. They don't use wrenches. They use these trays. And of course, pretty much all your LS stuff's going to be a roller package anyway. So you got a small block, big block, whatever. You got a small base circle camshaft, and you notice that when you're priming the oil, you've got a handful of lifters or a handful of rock arms that are getting oil and some are dry. So at that point, what you want to do is rotate the motor, probably 90, 120 degrees, doesn't matter, and see if the ones that were dry start picking up oil. If they do, that means that this little oil squirter here is not in the trough all the time. So at that point, you have to actually pull the lifters back out and you grind this little trough in here. And what this trough does, it allows oil to get to that hole no matter what position the lifter is in the bore. And here's a instruction from an engine, from Champion Engine Components, where they're telling you that you may have to modify these lifters to make them oil continuous, so you don't burn push rods and stuff like that. So I just thought that would be handy information, so that you're like HI-74 IH. He's currently doing a Howard's roller cam swap in his car. So look at your oiling hole in your lifters, see where that is, see if it's in the main trough or if it's above the trough. And then what you want to do is prime the motor and make sure you're getting oiling to your push rods and rocker arms at all positions of the engine. If it don't, you want to put a grind in there and get that straightened out so you get full-time oil, and it'll save you a lot of engine wear and tear in the long run. I see everybody got back from dinner. So that's pretty much what I had on that for tonight's show. I had pictures I wanted to show of Leo's 4200. I've been working on that, and I did get that going. Let me see. I might even have them on the computer here. Let me just bear with me here for a second. Let me see if I can find those. We're making a oiling system for the valve springs on that, because that motor's having issues with. I know I don't have it. They're back at the shop, so we'll have to save that for another time. But basically, what I'm doing, if you guys saw the last week's show, I made a piece that goes down into a oiling cavity in the cylinder head, and that's going to a T with stainless lines running down both parallel with the camshafts, and they're going to have oiling holes which will lubricate the cam as the engine is rotating. So on Leo's motor, we're having an issue where the exhaust valve stems are getting not enough oil, and they're drying out, and then it wants to hang a valve open. We've been really lucky that so far that we haven't had a valve to piston issue with that, but we definitely want to get it fixed before that does become an issue. But so with that 4200, it's an overhead cam, and what it's happened over the time is the guys who were building the engines basically really weren't telling us a lot with what they were doing with the engine. Well, at some point, they switched the lifters from what they were using to a Jessel style that actually takes a shim, which works great. However, that lifter does not have an oiling hole, so there's no oil coming out of the squirter, out of the cam follower or rocker arm, whichever you want to call it. So there's no extra lubricant. The only oil that's coming out of it is whatever comes out of the cam journals, and then sprays onto the cam lobe, and then the cam lobe is lubricating everything as it's rotating around. But as you could imagine, that's not a very positive way of doing that. So we'll have to see what's going on with that. I see Dave wants me to check my text. Oh, he's sending me a picture. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so I'll get some stuff on that next week. We'll do that. Next week is going to be the 100th episode. So I really appreciate you guys all coming out and checking us out and seeing what's going on and all that. I really appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and call it because my dinner's here now. So I appreciate you guys all coming out. Hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm. If you've seen, we have a lot of new people on tonight. So if you aren't a subscriber, subscribe. It's free. You're not going to get any junk or anything like that. You're going to just be able to see whenever I put a new posting up or whenever we're going to do a live show and everything. And just gives you good information. Whenever I'm putting out information, it gives you a heads up. I see we have a couple people here. B. Pratt said, well done. Well, thank you. Mike says, have a good night. Enjoy your dinner. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do. Next week is going to be the 100th episode. I've got, I think, a little welding thing I want to do with that. And so we'll see how that works out. I'll get that all set up for you guys and we'll go from there. So yeah, Chris 100. Yeah. Oh, and B. Pratt says, you're in Solano. Okay. That's cool. I really appreciate everybody coming out. So anyway, so with that, we're going to go ahead and say good night. And what did I do with the music? Not on my normal setup, so I'm not as quick on the draw as I normally would be. I apologize for that. There we go. So, all right. I'll see everybody next week. Thanks. See ya.